Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coffee People podcast presented by Roastar Coffee Packaging. You can find them online at roastar.com. I want to say thank you for being here with us today. I'm your host, Ryan Woldt. I'm near the end of season 15. If you've missed any episodes, we'll curate them in our newsletter, which you can sign up for on our website, coffeepeoplepodcast.com. You can also find all of those episodes on your favorite podcast platforms like Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. Thank you for watching and listening, liking and subscribing, and generally just appreciating the world of coffee and the entrepreneurial effort that it takes to get that coffee into your mug. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way, I hope you have a good cup of coffee today too, because we're going to get into the conversation with two great guests, the co-founders of Third Wave Water. I'll add their links into our show notes. Cheers. And like I just said off air, I appreciate you both being here. Welcome to Coffee People. I'm excited to be here. I haven't done a show in a while, and it's just me and the dog, so I get kind of lonely up here in Oregon. Would you gentlemen mind introducing yourselves for the audience, just so they can hear your voice, maybe your name and the company you work for, Third Wave Water, what you do there?
Sure. My name is Charles Nick, the president of Third Wave Water. I lead a lot of the marketing, administration, and sales efforts.
My name is Taylor Miner, I guess functioning co-founder, CEO. I do a lot of the operations, facilities, making sure sticks get made, all of the kind of behind the scenes stuff.
Well, I'm excited to talk more about those sticks in a little bit, but I'm hoping that we get a little more background before we do that. Coffee is something that impacts all of us, even when we're not working in it. I'm wondering if you have kind of memories of coffee or a first coffee kind of aha experience that made you think, oh, this is something that I'm interested in, and put it on your radar in that way.
Sure. First experience. The first experience was negative, if I'm going to be honest about coffee. Specialty coffee, very different. The term that comes to my brain is bad breath. So, burnt flavors, just, nothing that's really pulling me in. I hated coffee for a long time and kind of forced my way through it in office environments, dumping sugar in to get my daily caffeine, and then eventually forced myself to stop drinking sugar with it so I could drink it black. And then still didn't like it, but discovered specialty at Pete's, actually, in Dayton, Ohio, when they were here still. They had a luminous blend, which was a surprise. And I was challenging some of the people there, and I'm like, what do who cares about a Hawaiian this and blah, blah, blah. And they kept brewing a bunch of different cups of coffee. And the one that got me was a Chemex version of their luminous. And after they closed, I'll end with this. I tried to find that luminous blend in their other Pete's, and it was different. So they had a different sourcer for the roaster for that location in Dayton, and I never got to discover who it was, but they did such a good job in that one. But the one in Columbus, that one tasted too dark, and I didn't like it.
How about you, Taylor?
Yeah, so my parents owned a coffee shop in the late 90s. And so I grew up working that, and then got into specialty coffee myself, started home roasting in the mid thousands. I started a cafe roastery in 2008 and had that for about 10 years before transitioning all the way to Third Wave Water. But probably my first really aha moment would be when I was home roasting. I think it was, so this would have been like 2007, just like a good Sumatra and fresh roasted. It was, it was kind of like, oh, wow, this is really good. So I think it was on a French press. So
Why start home roasting just because you had that experience in the coffee shop with your parents? I mean, what is it about your personality that made you think this is something I kind of want to tweak around with and figure out?
So I had always had the dream, my wife and I, of having a coffee shop, coffee roastery. So the getting into home roasting was like, oh, I'm gonna start doing this and then kind of see where it goes. So yeah, I had always had the idea of going into owning a cafe roastery. You know, when you have like a shop, and then you don't anymore, you keep thinking about, oh, next time if I, I want to do this, I want to do this. You kind of always have that running tally in your head of uh, uh, features or what you would do different, or so. Yeah.
So we've got Charles. You're working in an office somewhere. Taylor's got some coffee background. How do you guys connect? I mean, are you guys friends from childhood? Do you meet as adults? Where does this relationship, this partnership begin?
It was through the Right Cup, was a coffee subscription business I had at the time, and the Wright brothers, Right Cup, that kind of homage because we're in the Dayton area. And it was just trying to launch specialty coffee, help you discover great coffee. So you get 4 samples of all kinds of different ones. So I met Taylor as a roaster, one of the local roasters in Dayton, and uh, basically, kind of we had some fun, talking science and other different things. So we would talk other subjects offside, and we kind of came to it 2 different ways, though, as far as the origin story. I know we'll eventually get there, but mine kind of came from I was buying really expensive coffee and shipping it to my customers, and they were not having the same experience I was at home. And I couldn't figure out why. Is it the brew method? Is it process? Are they using horrible brewers they haven't cleaned or something strange? And eventually, I was working in Kansas for Kansas State University as a researcher at the time. And when I would bring all my stuff out, I was, bring an AeroPress and a kettle and, some local coffee I liked that I would brew at home. And when I brewed it in Kansas, it was disgusting. Like, it wasn't just like a little bit worse, like it ruined the coffee so bad. Sorry, Kansas, your water's atrocious. At least in that city I was in. And where what kind of popped in my head was, at least from this perspective, was then, well, the water is the only variable, but I didn't know the answer, but at least I knew the right question to ask. And I'll let Taylor tell his story. So he came from it from a different angle, but we were coming to the same conclusion or the same questions.
Sure.
Yeah. So I had, had the cafe going, decided to join the SCA, started going to SCA events, especially Coffee Association. There were some events back then called Symposium or RICO. So it took place about 3 days before Expo and was kind of a little smaller event, but had speakers. Then we dive into, the deep nerdery of coffee. One of the years was when Maxwell and Chris Hendon came out with Water for Coffee. So I met them, was kind of introduced in that book. And then I was just, always trying to, tweak things in my cafe roastery. And so had come up with kind of an elaborate water filtration scheme for my cafe that was kind of bespoke. And, if would have people take, gallons of water home to brew with. And so that's kind of where I went into the water for coffee, was on that cafe roastery side.
Was there a discussion that the two of you guys had in one of these, meetings through coffee, where you both realize the other one has addressed this issue, and you start going, well, how can we fix it?
Sure. No, we were sitting having sushi in Thai Nine, and we're like, hey, because I was asking him, I was like, what do you? Because I brought up basically my story from Kansas, and I'm like, well, what do you do as a roastery for your water? And then he explained he had built this water system, and that there was the that there was an actual water standard, and that was the first thing. I'm like, oh, interesting. There's a water standard for coffee. So then the question was, can I deliver that to my customers on the shipping side? And I didn't want to ship a bunch of weight, so the question to him was, what if we make a condensed version of yours and then add it to, because you can make a a condensed version of most waters on concentrate, and then ship it and add it to a distilled or something, or an empty base. And then he kind of joked back and was like, well, yeah, no, we could freeze dry it. And we're like, well, actually, we wouldn't freeze dry it. We would just start with the minerals. And then that's what kind of started off this whole journey, because we didn't want to ship heavy water, and we wanted to make a concentrate, but then powder was the most efficient way to get it, because then you don't have any concentrate. You're just starting it with a complete open empty base.
I
Yeah. So
think that
after our conversation, I kind of had a laboratory in for testing coffee and stuff, and so I got all these minerals, came up with kind of the first beta version of third wave water, put it in some micro centrifuge vials. It looked really suspicious. I dropped it off at the office co-share that Charles was at, just at the front desk. I'm like, hey, this is for Charles. It's not sketchy, but and then the next time I think he was in Kansas, he used that to brew with, and then kind of came back with his experience.
those first batches, those beta tests, as you mentioned, which first of all, good on you for not trying to mail them, because I think that would have probably gone horribly wrong. But also, how do you know what minerals to combine? Did you break down the water that you were using, at your facility, and say, well, this is what is in this. This is the solids that are dissolved here in this water, and reverse engineer it? Did you go to resources like Chris Hendon, who I just saw speak, and I only understood maybe 20% of what he was saying? Uh, how did you determine this is what I think might make sense for what Charles is doing over there?
Yeah. So I kind of backed into it. So, there's obviously, hey, this is kind of big picture. There's no one water, right? But there are objectively bad waters and objectively better waters. And those can vary different from different roast types. But in general,
Water
you're
standard.
like, okay, we're looking for this target, right? And you can specify that as much as possible. Then I started looking at the practicalities of mixing multiple minerals together, to and not having chemical reactions that were unintended, right? So if you mix in a liquid form, for instance, sodium bicarbonate, baking soda, and calcium chloride, they have a chemical reaction and then actually separate, and then create calcium carbonate and sodium chloride. Um, and so there are some powders that will react to if the moisture changes or the temperature changes. Then I started looking at, okay, water solubility of different minerals, right? So there's some minerals like, oh yeah, we can put in water, but we need carbonated water to dissolve it. And then there are some minerals that were like, okay, these are really corrosive to stainless steel. I didn't really like them. I also thought, like, man, if somebody were to use this improperly, right, they could really ruin their coffee equipment. For instance, calcium chloride is can be really corrosive to stainless steel and espresso machines. So, say somebody puts in a 5-gallon stick into the 1-gallon container, they use that and they can ruin their machine. So it was kind of all these different things. I was like, okay, what would work best in all of these scenarios, and how can I get to it? So it there were already lots of people in specialty coffee making their own water, so that was a thing. Even Maxwell and Hendon were making their own water for doing taste tests at this symposium. So there was already a lot of people making water, but I just came about it like, okay, practically, what powders can I mix together? What minerals can I mix together that will dose properly, that I can store, that I can package? And so, yeah, it was multifactorial.
But definitely beyond the mechanics, it started with the SCA specs. So like 150 TDS was a generic to start and work backwards. Well, he knew from magnesium, like he had read through the book, which we still can't find, by the way. I know it's here somewhere. The Water for Coffee book, magnesium is an importance. So we made sure magnesium was a part of a recipe. But yeah, we definitely had a lot of mechanics on the blending specific powders into a fluid, and to figure out what was going to work.
It sounds like you guys are at that point already thinking about it as a potential product.
Oh,
Are
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, are you working together at this point? Are you saying we want to develop this into a product? Why go from the this is a curiosity, a rabbit hole we've fallen into to oh, there's a business here.
Because it was solving my issue. Like I wanted this fixed for my customers, so we made an initial batch set and sent them off to my customers just to see um, with an a specialty coffee consumer base, like would they react to it well? And it was overwhelmingly positive, and that's why that was a big part of why I think we decided
Yeah.
to look forward.
So Charles and I both read a lot of business books, had a lot of less than successful businesses before third wave, and we had learned a lot. So when we met, what I found is we were both speaking the same language and kind of on the same wavelength. And like I knew, like, oh, I want to work with this guy. I don't know really how yet, but I think we make a good team. So there was some of that. Kind of in that was the idea of like, hey, what's minimum viable product? How can we test this and make it fail quick, right, before you launch something? How can we do? So what is that? So yeah, our first thing was all hand weighed out in little centrifuge vials, and we didn't even have a name yet. We just called it Coffee Spice. I was a kind of a Dune nerd, and I thought, this is like the spice. And yeah, and then uh, we got some feedback. People really liked it, and then I think we were at a Dayton Startup Week. They had a little like startup entrepreneurship convention, and we both decided, hey, let's launch this for real. There's a small coffee event in Chicago in a month. Let's launch it. So we then decided, okay, now we have 4 weeks. Let's launch this company in 4 weeks. So and from there, then we got came up with the company name, the logo, made our first batch. And again, this was okay. Like we know some people like it, but let's do a little bigger and see what people say. At that industry event, the right people were saying the right things. At least we thought. So we're like, okay, let's launch it. Let's keep growing this. Let's have our website. Let's sell online. And then that quickly went into let's do a Kickstarter. So that discussion we had was the beginning of October. The end of October, we launched. We had our first online sales in November. We decided in December to do a Kickstarter. We launched the Kickstarter in January. It funds in 11 hours, and then we get an email February from Shark Tank saying, "Hey, we think you'd be a good fit for the show."
Oh,
So
that's interesting. They reached out to you.
yeah, they reached out to us. So it was all extremely quick, and just kind of once it got going, just kind of kept going.
Like kind of holding on for dear life.
I've launched a couple of Kickstarters or startup fundraisings myself. They always tell you that you should take 6 months to plan for it. It doesn't sound like that happened in this case. Was the response what you expected, or were you surprised at how quickly people kind of caught on? I mean,
Um,
are there competitors at that time doing this that you
I
were
would say
like,
we put in 6 months of work into 1 month.
hmm
So we listened to countless Kickstarter podcasts and kind of moneyballed it as much as possible, even down to like what day of the week is the best time to um, launch it. How many days should you do it? What time of day? What's the average ticket price that you should have? Having correct upscaled bundles, right? Um, and so we weren't, I guess, shocked at its success. Now this was, I mean, we raised $20,000 on Kickstarter, which nowadays for specialty coffee products on Kickstarter, that's nothing, right? You'll see stuff go $2 million. $200,000 is like almost a gimme. So this was still kind of early on in specialty coffee. This was beginning of 2017. But but yeah, we definitely didn't go in naive. So we really tried to plan everything out, and go about it in a smart way. Um, so yeah.
And it did what it was supposed to. So like it did kickstart our business. Like we were using it for leverage to buy equipment to be able to scale the business. And one of the things that you don't make your first test to your business, especially 99% of the time, scalable, because you're going to waste your time and money trying to make something scalable and you don't know if anybody gives a crap yet. So you got to first find out on that first, like your very best customer base. If you, whoever you think that is, if you market it to them and there's no hook, then how much money and time did you just waste before you got to them? So it's all Eric Rye's lean startup principles. That was what we were trying to incorporate, which is why we launched the business in a coffee event, because we're like, we're going to go directly to the people that are going to ask us the questions, the hard questions, and see if we're in the right space. Are they going to say you should have been here yesterday, or are they going to say you're an idiot, this is a horrible idea, why are you even here? Is it going to be a hard sell or an easy sell? And for us, it was an easy sell. Like they were telling us, wow, this has been way too long in the industry coming. Somebody should have been doing this a long time ago.
So when that email comes in from Shark Tank, which has become this huge empire of a show, and it was even fairly popular in 2017, but maybe not quite where it is today. You take that opportunity
We
and you
won't
do
take all the credit for bringing it up, but
that. Hey, you never know. What made you think, yeah, you know what, this is going to make sense for us? And then what was that experience like? How did it change what you're doing?
So funny thing is July of 2016, right? It was the first time we sat down and talked about this. Charles actually took meeting notes, and we said this would be great for Shark Tank. Um, so
Manifesting.
we kind of had, early on thought like, yeah, this kind of ticks all those boxes that would make for a great Shark Tank. But fast forward to February, I think it was our Kickstarter success that kind of put us on the map. I think they go through and they are trolling and looking for, hey, this Kickstarter was successful, right? So you have a startup, something that's been um, proven that some people are wanting. You can kind of look at it and then kind of cast a wide net there. So when we first got the email, I thought it was like fake, right? It was like, I'm like, yeah, Charles, I don't know this, like, is this real? I'm like, oh, well, let's just go ahead and try it. So,
Well, if it came from Shark Tank at AOL.com, it would have been a good tip
well, it
off.
was like it was like Fox. So they do something where like the people that film it are different than. So it was like
Sure.
a Fox studio, email. But even getting on Shark Tank is crazy. They said 30,000 people a year apply, and 120 make it onto the show. 200 film. So even if you go and film and get a deal, there's no guarantee you'll make it on the show. So the fact that we started this process, we launched in October. In February, they reach out. And then in June, we were filming.
Well, quick turnaround.
And then that beginning of that next October, it was airing. So we went from launch to airing on Shark Tank in under a year, which really should never be a business plan. It wasn't our business plan, but that would be a terrible idea for a business plan because there's a lot of things outside your control.
there was a lot of stuff we did for Kickstarter to help it be successful, though. I mean, launching at the right time, putting the time in the campaign, hiring some local college kids to help us with the video, stuff like that. But I'd say the biggest ones was doing a podcast. We actually pre-filmed with, I think it was Brian Bakey and Brian Shelley. Is that his name? There
Sheely,
were
the
two
coffee
Brians.
podcast, yeah.
Yeah, and they were they launched that podcast on the day of. So we had a podcast launching the day we were doing the Kickstarter. I think we had a few other things planned that day for launch too. So it wasn't just like a cold launch. So we had done some pre-sales for some stuff that they
We
could
were
order.
mocked in some news outlets about hipsters are ruining coffee.
It's great.
And so that kind of gave us, Sprudge did a thing on it. Uh, so yeah, there was kind of a confluence of stuff. But again, it was kind of planned out. Our idea, the idea wasn't like, oh, let's just kind of kick it off and see what happens. It was we tried to be very deliberate.
Well, that and brings me to I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to a question that I've been thinking about a lot, which is you just mentioned you're getting mocked as hipsters are ruining coffee. Is this a specialty coffee nerd thing? Is this a product that you think appeals to the normal person? Who is the customer for a packet of third wave water? And we're too far into the show, so I'm going to mention this at the top. But essentially, if I buy a box from Third Wave, it comes with 12 little mineral packet sticks that I add to distilled water that I then use in the brewing process of my coffee at home.
Yeah.
Which I have done, and I'll have another comment on later that I don't want to share
So
until
the
we're done.
majority of our customers are mainstream coffee drinkers. Lots of Keurigs, lots of Nespresso, lots of people that buying from Starbucks and Dunkin'. So and that was kind of our idea of having, light, medium, dark roast. So have profiles that are meant for dark roast, because our idea was, how do we improve? We want to improve your coffee. Well, that's really subjective. But you can kind of get into some different camps. And, when you'd have a cafe, you could kind of be like, someone would be like, oh, I like coffee. You would ask like three questions, like, oh, well, you like dark roast or light roast, right? Like what kind of, if someone comes in and says, hey, I want a macchiato, well, like a Starbucks caramel macchiato or like a real macchiato, right? Because you give that
Different thing.
wrong drink and they're not going to be happy. So
But we're
the
yeah, go
yeah, I
ahead.
would say that we do have a pretty, yes, there are, we have, our roots are in specialty. We have a lot of specialty consumers, but also we have a lot of, regular salt of the earth people. Our low acid profile is kind of out there. It's not really, uh, uh, it's outside of SCA or specialty spec. It's just a really high alkalinity water that will reduce acidity up to 400%. And so it's um, yeah. So yeah, I would say it's a good spectrum of specialty coffee people and regular coffee people.
Yeah, our goal is to help anyone in coffee the easiest way possible, like an emphasis on easy. So to get you to the SCA profile as quickly as possible, to get you to a calibrated cupping profile as quickly as possible, to help people that are struggling with low acid issues. Like that was one we started a couple of years ago. Doing the light, medium, dark is it's logical because it matches what people are reaching for, right? Like when they're picking up coffee, whether it's specialty or non-specialty. There's arguments that say, no, don't even say what the roast is. You're roasting to the bean. And it's like, okay, ignore that conversation for just 2 minutes. Most people are still reaching for something that says light, medium, or dark on it. So that helps them on the branding to at least get them in the close pocket. We still explain to them to experiment. So if you have a light roast, try the medium. If you have a medium roast, try the dark or the light. Kind of go on both sides of the spectrum and then start to find out what flavors you like. Because between them, they will emphasize certain notes and then they will also leave behind certain notes depending on what you're doing with the water. So it's always fun to experiment and see, oh, I didn't know I actually would like this coffee with this different water versus the other one. But
The
yeah,
Yeah, the other is espresso machines. That's
100%.
kind of agnostic to coffee flavor. So obviously, coffee flavor is a key to that, but probably more so is the sustainability of your espresso machine. So a lot of people spend hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars on an espresso machine. They then scare you and they're like, "Here, your water needs to be like this," and then you're like, "Well, how do I get that?" Well, we're not going to tell you. We're just going to tell you. We always joked, called it the Kobayashi Maru water recipe, where they that's like a Star Trek reference to this unwinnable game. So the the water recipe that you see is kind of useless to most people, right? When they're like, oh, it needs to be this much total hardness, this much general hardness, this much calcium, this, and it's like the pH of this. Well, like most people are like, what am I supposed to do with that? Just tell me what I need to do. And so it's really an actionable way for people to protect their equipment, and then also to get ideal coffee flavor. So
Yeah,
I would say our biggest, most popular product is our espresso machine profile.
which is why we partner with a lot of espresso machine companies now. So more and more trying to help them, like, how do you have a good experience with your product? Meraki, it comes with the third wave water. DeLonghi, Rancilio, they recommend us. We're not in their box yet, but we're starting to work with more and more. La Marzocco Home, they'll mention it. Still not on a publication there yet, but but that's our another part of the goal in helping people enjoy their coffee is making sure their super expensive machinery doesn't die.
And then the last thing I'll put on that is the so when I calculate out how many sticks we sell, it ends up being about 150,000 cups a day are drank with third wave water. And so there we've shipped to like 83 different countries. Um, we so yeah, I would say that it's yes, it's specialty, but it's also, you know, that's what's nice thing about in the US. You have some of the food that people eat nowadays, right, is better than the elite were eating 50 years ago, right? So and then once you kind of have that experience of like, oh, good balsamic vinegar, good olive oil, good bread, good chocolate, right? You're like, well, I kind of like that and I want to stick with that. And so I think the same as with coffee. People have those, you know, oh, wow, I can't go back to drinking coffee like I used to. And they're kind of now, they've upgraded and they're going to stay that way.
The first third wave water packet that I actually got at a SCA event was a sample product I brought home. I went and picked up the distilled water and put it together, and I wanted to be. I didn't want it to work. I'll be honest. I was like, I don't want this to work because I don't want to have to buy a new thing. I don't want to deal with it. I already have my system in place. And then I used that first box that I had and brewed from a machine and a pour over, a French press, kind of all the different ways that I like to make coffee, depending on the attitude I wake up with in the morning. And it was actionably better. I mean, it was noticeable to me, like, oh, and I was coming from a place where the water's not great coming out of the faucet. And so I actually remember this kind of like, oh shit. Well, now this is something I'm doing. So it was something that I really had that experience as a customer, and then I buy my own third wave water and do use it. I'm wondering, the to go back a little bit between that kind of Kickstarter launch and the filming of the show, it's not all just getting ready to be on television, which is cool, but you still have this thing that's growing and you're still figuring out details and if it can scale and how to do that. Was there ever a time where you went to that show and you wouldn't have taken a deal that was offered, or you would have just used it for potentially marketing, or, hey, we were on Shark Tank sort of thing? Did you ever think about it that way? And then what value has come to you, since then as part of that?
The show was a great experience. Like, it was to me, and I think Taylor too. Like, it was a lot of fun. Of course, it's a bit of stress. You're trying to figure out some things, and people are like, "Oh, is it scripted? Do they do anything?" And it's like, no, it's not scripted. The only thing scripted is your pitch, which makes sense. You've got to. They want to make sure you can walk out there and clearly communicate your business idea. And then after that, it's just hashing out the ideas and arguing with people to get to some investment. And as changing anything, I don't know if you mean like later in the business or just in general, like looking back 2020, hindsight 2020, being like, would you change anything going in then?
2020, looking back, I guess what the question is more related to, how did things change after that? Was it, you know, did the attention change? Did people's perception of the brand change?
100%.
Yeah.
Shark
So
Tank is a show that is, and I don't mean to harp on that too much, but my in-laws were just here, and Shark Tank is a show that we can all watch together. And there's not a lot of those shows out there.
Yeah. So, I mean, we still, even when we knew we were going to be on Shark Tank, even when we filmed, we were like, let's pretend this didn't happen. And we had these conversations like, there's a, it could even air. And if it airs, it happens to air on the same day that a national tragedy happens, nobody's going to watch it. Right. So it was like, we need to build a business that stands on its own without Shark Tank. And so that was from day one kind of our mantra, like, okay, we'll keep doing this Shark Tank thing and, act like it's not going to happen. And then keep building and growing, even without it. So we, we're really trying to do business stuff, the nitty gritty of any business, right? You can have a great idea, but if you don't execute well, right, it's you're going to lose it all. So it really has to be, both. So, even when we aired on Shark Tank and we had 10,000 orders, in a day. And it was a crazy amount of traffic, crazy amount of sales, but it petered down. And so that following year, year and a half, I mean, we had some times where it's like, oh man, we might need to go back and get real jobs again. Right. And so, and we went to, during this time, we went to this place called Aileron, which was kind of small business leadership, entrepreneurship classes. So, really trying to like, okay, what do we need to do? We got a board of advisors, people that could, really speak wisdom into what we were doing to make sure, you're not crazy and help you focus on things. So, the Shark Tank was a huge launch, but it was one of those things that, man, there were, probably 100 different ways that we could have screwed the pooch. We thankfully have made more good decisions than bad decisions at this point, but it's still one of those, it's a daily thing.
Yeah, it changed everything though, as far as the business. So, like the Shark Tank effect is 100% real. You just got to be ready for it. And we did our best to be as prepared as we could, because one of the biggest questions you have is how much inventory should you have in stock? Well, probably double or triple that. So we still had no idea like what the Shark Tank effect was going to be. We prepared as best we could. We were still doing. We had the machine at that point, but we had such a small team. We didn't have that many employees at all, like maybe one, two. And then when the show hit, it was like we would finish when we got back after the filming. It was still 2 weeks into the filming or after the show had aired, and we're still getting like all, you have a little. So sometimes people keep these on. We had to turn it off, where you have like Shopify dings worth a sale, and Amazon, and we would finish the day with more orders than what we were shipping off that day, and for like the next 2 weeks, and we just couldn't keep up, but it was so fun. And then I was like, okay, we got to keep hiring. It's a good problem to have, as long as you don't burn everything to the ground and how you deliver your product. So it's still got to be a quality product. And final note on the Kickstarter, I think one of the ways that we helped him, I think, impress, and anybody on Kickstarter can impress somebody Shark Tank if they're trying to get their attention or an investor, is it wasn't just the Kickstarter or even that they sold. It was that we delivered too. So I think all of those things together, because we delivered on time the product we promised, those things are what investors and what people, because Shark Tank is investors, so that's why the producers are maybe looking there. They didn't tell us they were looking there. Is because they're looking and people are looking and finding those companies or organizations that can actually do that whole process. And if you can do that and actually deliver, because there are many, many, many people, as you've seen on Kickstarter, that do not deliver, and they promise, especially in coffee world, we have a ton of people that sell coffee stuff, and it's like, here's 100K, here's 2 million. And it's like, well, did they deliver the machine yet? Anyways, yeah, that's a big part of it.
I mean, there's something to be said for having an idea, but then the execution of that idea. I used to always share a lot of my thoughts or my creative ideas or entrepreneurial ideas, just to see if there was interest or if it was a good idea, and I didn't worry that much about who I was sharing it with, because not only did they have to have like the idea, they have to have the skill and the will and the time and the energy to do that thing. That's changed a little bit on the creative side with the advent of things like ChatGPT and so on. But I'm still fairly liberal with, if I have an idea, I want to throw it out and get as much feedback as I can. You mentioned that those first, 10,000 orders all of a sudden, coming from probably a much smaller amount. I understand sourcing for green coffee. I've learned enough about that and talked to enough traders. Sourcing of minerals, though, isn't something that I had ever really thought about. It in my head. I'm thinking about beta testing, but you're like going and buying products off the shelf somewhere. How does that even
Yeah.
become something you're aware of, and how does that go work
Yeah.
this?
So early on, it's not only just the product, but it's like, hey, is it in the right size that we need it? So I had a VersaLab grinder. It's a Weber grinder before Weber grinders.
Hmm.
Um, it's one of the first low RPM espresso grinders. Anyways, I use that to grind down our magnesium sulfate for a year before we found a supplier that we could get it in the sizes that we need. Right. So yeah, it was a learning experience. You have to figure out, you got to Google it, but you don't know the terms yet to even Google. So it's like you have these kind of ideas, and then you see a word or a phrase. You're like, oh, that's what I'm looking for, and then now you know what to search for. So yeah, there was that. There was, even from making the stuff, right? Like, making one hamburger is easy, right? Now make a million of them the same way, right? That's exponentially harder, because there's so many steps along the way. So, just even from launch to where we are now, we've had lots of iterations and internal testing, and in terms of making our product better. And but yeah, the sourcing is different. So, but it wasn't necessarily harder.
Business is just, it's a constant troubleshooting because you're creating new problems that you never had. So like every time, like you're like, oh, I'm going to manufacture this thing. It's like, oh crap. Okay. How am I going to do that? If it's an original idea, or even with a coffee roaster, you still got to find, where am I getting my bags? How am I getting stuff packed together? And there's a lot more people today that will help you with pieces and parts, but can they help you reach your audience in your specific neighborhood? What's the marketing look like for that region? So you're still going to have different troubleshooting for your business and customer service and in marketing and reaching out and in product development. And as you grow and try all the different things in your business, I think that's one thing that Taylor and I have been blessed with, is we enjoy the troubleshooting process. And that's been a strength of ours, that when we do have a new challenge, whether it's in production or in other parts of the business, it's not just us fixing it, but we don't just give up. So we try to bring in other people, like where we mentioned a board of advisors, so they can help us, and we can call them and ask them, hey, we have this issue. So in business, if you're don't remain alone. Once you start business, start making partnerships or friendships with other business people. You don't need to partner with them for them to help you. And that's a big part of growing business, is knowing other business leaders and owners.
That kind of leads me to this segment we do here. This show is sponsored by Roastery Coffee Packaging. They've asked me to try to collate or collect advice for other burgeoning entrepreneurs. Uh, Taylor, you said something earlier that stuck with me, and that was that you knew that you wanted to work with Charles. Maybe you didn't know how yet at the beginning. How if you were to give advice to somebody coming up who is considering going into business and considering working with a partner, what advice would you give them on traits to look for? I mean, or how do you qualify someone you think might work for you? And I know it's a very personal question, but what do you look for in a partner? What is the things that have stood out? And now that you've been in this partnership for some time, how has that held up, or how has that
Yeah, yeah.
changed?
I think when it comes to entrepreneurial stuff, if you're entrepreneurially minded, you learn really early that most people aren't. And you're going to start talking, and they're going to freak out, and they're going to be like, well, what about this? What about that? And so sometimes you can learn that you kind of feel people out, right? And you're like, before I start talking crazy entrepreneur talk, you find out that hey, there's, this, okay, we're on the same page. So I think it was early on and working together. It was just like we vibed really, really well. And it was, I had admired what he was building and I liked it. And it was one of those things where it's like, man, my current brand, this is what we're striving for. I like what he's doing. Like, I want to learn from some of that. And honestly, so that day we had lunch, I was setting up a cold brew tap at the office co-share and to do nitro cold brew. Um, and I'm like, man, like, hey, let's just go get lunch together because I'm like, hey, I don't know what, but like I feel like we should do more business together. So it was just kind of like, hey, once you find those people that you vibe with and are on the same wavelength, just being around each other, discussing your problems with each other, like, man, those kind of people are great for ideas, and then you can give them ideas, but the fact is that we're just really few and far between, and so it's like once you find those people who are like, man, these are my people, it's just figuring out ways then to keep those people around you.
Any other thoughts, Charles, on that?
Yeah, no, it reciprocal for me. Looking at Taylor as a business partner and why I felt it would work and still works is because as a trait to look for in other, just either if it's a business partner or it's other business people you're working with, trustworthy, hardworking, and realistic. So, and he wasn't overly critical. So, like that's the thing I think he's hinting at is when you pitch ideas, they're not just shot down, but expect some good questions. So he's going to ask you, or your other, business helper people are going to ask you good questions. They're not going to give you the right answers, and that's a big thing that I think works for advisory boards, for working with other business entrepreneurs. Don't ask them for the answers and try to get good questions. I know that's a little bit of a side tangent, but for business partners and working with people in general, those would be, to me, some of the strongest traits.
Coming up on 45 minutes, I've got a million other questions I could ask, but I want to make sure that we get a chance to figure out what, you're how many years into this, what's coming, what's next, what's the trajectory that Third Wave is on? Is there more innovation, more growth, or what is is it survival at this point? We're in a weird time economically. What's the future for Third Wave Waterhold?
If you're not growing, you're not growing. So for sure, like innovation, you're always trying to do something new, even if it's just finding a new market, new sales channel. You've got to be doing something. So at a base level, that's where we're headed. We just launched into Europe this year. Through a company, and they're helping us quite a bit in getting correct distribution. We struggled with that one for a long time. So for our European customers, we apologize for all the hassle you've had to go through until now. But today they finally have a good option. Other intellectual property and stuff is coming, but we'll kind of hold off on some of those ideas for now.
Yeah, I would say that there's some products out there like Oreo or what's the spray that you spray on things when it gets squeaky.
WD-40.
I can't think of it. What?
WD-40.
Yeah, WD-40. Those are products that like you never see commercials for, but they've been selling for years, right? And all Oreo needs to do to keep cashing that check is just keep making Oreos, right? They have this secret product that is fantastic and nobody's been able to duplicate. So not saying that we have Oreos, but what can really turn people, just like those traits in a business partner, you want to look for somebody who does what they say they're going to do, right? Is trustworthy, is honest. Those are what customers are looking for in businesses, right? So we try to be radically honest as much as we can with our customers. If we make a mistake, hey, our fault, we're going to fix it, right? And especially in this day and age, man, so many companies do terrible job of customer service and support, that we found that, hey, if we just offer, you know, the level of support that you would expect to get at a local place, where you have somebody who will fix something. Um, Man, people are over the moon. And so, moving forward, our goals are like, okay, how do we keep making our stuff, make it better? We just got some new equipment, and our sticks in the future are going to start coming where you can tear them now. They have an easy tear strip built into it, right? So it's something little, but it's like, man, this is an improvement on life. Um, but
Customers are
yeah,
yes.
we're always trying to innovate. Thankfully, we've been growing, at least 30% a year every year. And the I don't know, yeah, with the economy, everything's up in the air when it's like, okay, in a year from now, will anybody want our product? I don't know, but I feel like with the things that we know and our ability to problem solve, we may not be making third wave water, but we'll make something else, right? So, you kind of got that entrepreneurial spirit, right? The goal is just to surround yourself by people and be able to pivot before it's too late. But yeah, moving forward, I think we have one of our business advisors told us it was companies don't go out of business because of lack of opportunity. They go out of business because you have too much opportunity and you're not focused. So you end up trying to do too much and you do a bad job at all of it. And you can spend all of your money real quick. So
Well,
Yeah.
that's my solution is I just started with no money and stuck with that the whole way through. Um, is there a regulatory body that you have to answer to with your products? Is it an FDA product, or is it
yeah,
who's checking in to make sure that what you're putting in there is what you're putting in there?
yeah, it's a good question. So we had to register through the FDA when we first launched. FDA is a little different than local health departments. It's like uh, it's the onus is on you to register, right? And if you were to say, "Hey, we're registering a shrimp processing factory," right? They're going to have somebody out there the next day inspecting you, but ours is pretty low risk. So the FDA then uh, got a hold of the Ohio Department of Agriculture, and then they come out every year or two and inspect us. So we have basic FDA uh, regulation requirements. Um, they we have a pretty in terms of risk level, we have a pretty low risk level, right? We're not processing raw chicken or stuff like that. And so I think then the next level would be any kind of independent. There's some big box stores that require uh, you know some four letter company. They have to come in and inspect you, right? And it's like a whole different set of ISO 9000 or whatever compliance you need to be in. So I think as we grow, we're kind of like, hey, let's let's do a good enough job. So if one of these opportunities come along and we need to be able to be certified by another third party, that we can fit into that rather quickly.
It's level of effort as we need.
Sure. I have two last questions, and the first is for anyone listening: where's the best place for them to find third wave water? You mentioned markets. Is it available in grocery stores, online? What's the best way to do that?
Definitely online. There's tons of grocery or specialty cafes around the country. If you want them to carry us, please let them know, and let us know. We'll reach out to them too and say you said hi. But Amazon, our website is totally fine. Thirdwavewater.com.
Okay, and then the last question I have is: if you are out and about, let's say you're headed off to some convention for coffee somewhere, and you stop to order a cup of coffee, what is it that you're going to order from a coffee shop?
If it's a specialty coffee,
Let's assume it's a pretty good,
okay.
coffee shop, and they've got all the right hipster things on the wall, and it looks like they know what they're doing.
All right. I would probably lean more towards asking them which Colombian or African is their current favorite. So I like quite a bit of the Ethiopian Yirgacheffe or Kenyan or on the Colombian side. But I like all the coffees, but those are where I naturally gravitate to. Some of the co-fermented stuff I'll take a step back from. I do enjoy the co-ferment if it doesn't have that weird aftertaste. If it does have the front taste, I'm all about it. It tastes like liquid gold. It's amazing. But once that goes bad, it's atrocious.
Yeah, I'm impatient, so a lot of times I'm like, if they already have a drip already made, right? It's just like, hey, I'll take whatever's in the batch brew. I usually don't order a pour over. It could be hit or miss on pour over in terms of level of effort, or you're just waiting around and you're like, twiddling your thumbs. But yeah, if I'm really hungry, or I might get a flat white or a mocha or something with some milk in it, right? That'll kind of. But no, I'm usually it's batch brew, pour over, something filter coffee, and yeah, like Ethiopian, or yeah, asking the barista, what's your favorite? What's your what do you like? Or hey, I'm looking for something a little brighter, more acidic, a little more fruit. What do you recommend? And that can be fun in terms of building those relationships with people, and finding undiscovered gems.
It is fun to see like what specialty drinks they have, because so many specialty cafes now have like a specialty drink section where it's not just the coffee, but it's like a mixed drink almost. Sometimes without alcohol or whatever, but they have their own unique recipes for like a really nice, it's got a pinch of orange and who knows what else that they put in there. And those are the types I do like to experiment and try to find recipes. And then it's got to be brewed by an Alpha Dimenci steampunk machine.
A throwback.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a sucker for like, hey, we're known for this thing, right? Like this is our, I can get this here. And so I like, experimenting with those things.
It's always exciting when the barista is excited as well.
Yes.
Then I'll go outside my normal box for sure, and end up with like a lemonade coffee that I never would have ordered on my own or something. I feel like I would love to have you back at some point to talk more about aeronautics and film and who you are outside of Third Wave Water. But I've stolen too much of your time already today. Anything that I missed that you wanted people to know, or that I forgot to ask, or we just didn't get to, that's important?
No, and and we're pretty open books. People could contact us and find us on the socials or email us. I'm Taylor at thirdwavewater.com. He's Charles at thirdwavewater.com. If I don't respond, email me again. I'm the dyslexic ADD entrepreneur, and I'm in chaos a lot of times. So, we're pretty open.
Yeah, we love to talk about whatever people are trying to do to make coffee better. There's so many different steps, and I'm with you in your initial skepticism. You're like, I really don't want this to work. There's so many new ideas and things that come out, so many regurgitations of old ideas. You're just like, is really we need another one of those? It's the same thing I had last year, but with a different color. But when you see a new idea and it comes out, it's like, is it something truly going to help somebody with their coffee, whether it's process, flavor, whatever. So yeah, we love learning in the coffee space. So definitely reach out and say hi.
Will do. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and for being on the show. And I'm looking forward to sharing some of your thoughts with everyone else.
Awesome. Thank you so
Fantastic.
much.
Take care.
Hey, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I just wanted to pop in here at the end to say thank you for watching and listening. I really appreciate it. Please tip your baristas and be sure to drink good coffee.
Sliding into your screen is not just any coffee can. It's a Roastar coffee can. Don't need thousands. Personalize just one in Roastar's Design Lab. No design experience needed. Choose a pattern, add your logo and text, or create something memorable with AI. Being made in the Midwest, you can expect it on your doorstep in no time. Now that was smooth.